The Red Book. Confrontation with the unconscious. Society. Up in flames.
Philosophy. He believed that sooner or later to become full human beings, not just puppets and playing roles, but to become full human beings, we had to have an inner life. And part of that inner life, we have to face what he called the shadow, the dark side. And that's when we go into the underworld or into the dark places, and we meet a very primitive part of ourselves. That Freud said the same thing. Civilized people repress the dark, primitive self, but it's still there. Dr. Jekyll always has a Mr. Hyde. You meet the shadow. You also find, every man finds, Jung says, and this comes in the Red Book, every man finds he has a feminine side, and every woman finds she had a masculine side. When you've met these other sides, then the rest of the work is finding a balance. And when you find a balance, there begins a new process, what Jung calls centering. And finally, he called it individuation, becoming your true self. We are mixtures of dark.
Accepting madness.
Spoke to me in a whisper, urgently and alarmingly. Words, do not make too many words. Be silent and listen. Have you recognized your madness, and do you admit it? Have you noticed that all your foundations are completely mired in madness? Do you not want to recognize your madness and welcome it in a friendly manner? You wanted to accept everything, so accept madness too. Let the light of your madness shine, and it will suddenly dawn on you. Madness is not to be despised, and not to be feared, but instead, you should give it life. Be glad that you can recognize it, but you will thus avoid becoming its victim. Madness is a special form of the spirit and clings to all teachings and philosophies, but even more to daily life, since life itself is full of craziness and at bottom utterly illogical.
Some of his paintings, their meanings. However, the darkness does not look inward or within. The darkness is not inwardly self-reflective or contemplative. Just like the quote from the Red Book, the darkness only looks outward to controlling others, toward the material world, consuming beauty, because the darkness is empty. Thus, there would be no desire to look within the emptiness and discover emptiness. What is the all-seeing eye, the one eye, the evil eye that permeates religion, financial wealth, governments, etc.? In a word, evil. Evil is only so only because the soul wielding it is blind to their internal state of being. If one eye is a symbol of external projected awareness, then two eyes represents a being of balanced, one who is capable of seeing both the inner and the outer worlds equally. I think it is safe to say that to defeat evil, the all-seeing eye, we must stop being either-or in our imbalanced perceptions and instead allow ourselves to gaze both externally and internally. Again, it's time to remember who we are by opening both eyes. That's the evil eye.
Nothing is more valuable to the evil one than his eye, since only through his eye can emptiness seize gleaming fullness. Because the emptiness lacks fullness, it craves fullness and its shining power, and it drinks it in by means of its eye, which is able to grasp the beauty and unsullied radiance of fullness. The emptiness is poor, and if it lacked its eye, it would be hopeless. It sees the most beautiful and wants to devour it in order to spoil it. The whole premise of Lord of the Rings is taking a part of the evil power back to itself, and when it is brought back to the heart of where it was made and unmade, it is completely destroyed. So it's almost like by taking, and in many ways a ring is like a representation of an eye, and by bringing the eye back in and turning it in on
turning it on itself, it's destroyed. The soul, Carl Jung's verses in the book, the Red Book. God and meaning, the devil, hell, the soul. Painting. If your creative force now turns to the place of the soul, you will see how your soul becomes green and how it bears field. Its field bears wonderful fruit. Masculinity, femininity, sexuality, self and wholeness. Imaginal characters, truth, death, wisdom, the beauty of suffering, Christ, the conclusion at the end of the Red Book. A beautiful reference. Pema Chodron talks about compassion, which I believe to be relevant here. Compassion is more emotionally challenging than loving kindness because it involves the willingness to feel pain. It definitely requires the training of a warrior. When we practice generating compassion, we can expect to experience our fear of pain. Compassion practice is daring. It involves learning to relax and allow ourselves to move gently towards what scares us. The trick to doing this is to stay with emotional distress without tightening into aversion, to let fear soften us rather than to harden into resistance.